I forgot to do the intro for the video. Hang on. Intro. Featuring Billy. Alright, so this is a story that I wrote last year in my creative writing class, and the assignment was based off of a photo that the teacher had, and the thing is, she thought it was like a regular photo, because she's like on the older side, but it was like so clearly an AI generated image, and I was like, I'm not writing a writing prompt based on AI. And she was like, well, you have to do the prompt. Like, everyone else is doing the prompt, do the prompt. And so I went and I did the prompt, like, my own way, you know, to point out, like, this is AI, and AI is bad. And this was last year, and I just, yeah. So I'm reading it now. It's called The Picture by yours truly. Please enjoy. Subway Surfers will be there. Don't even worry about it. I got you. The photo, at first glance, was a stunning glimpse into the life of someone from decades ago. It was printed onto aged film, designed to resemble a Polaroid from the 21st century. However, if one were to gaze upon the photo for more than a moment, it was as if the image warped before one's eyes. Seth stood in front of the museum display for far more than a moment. His eyes were well trained, and it had only taken a glance for him to see what many missed. The image was not, in fact, from the 21st century. It was printed recently. Perhaps the image was based on something from the past, but it was clearly fake. The anatomy of the bird was off. The facial expressions of the old man was warped. His legs were a twisted mess, as were the legs of the little girl. The photograph had been generated by artificial intelligence and printed onto aged film to make it appear ancient. Seth exhaled. The work put into this museum of the human past was truly pathetic. There was no effort to make the artifacts appear genuine. The Fashion Blast from the past, a tragically corny name, Seth noted, was designed with peculiar runway looks and impractical streetwear appearances. The clothes were poorly proportioned, the shoes appeared impossible to wear, and the ingredient lists on a plethora of makeup products had a notable lack of actual words found in a dictionary. Ancient photography was chock full of AI generated images, just like the one Seth had cited. Even the written wonders, once again horrifically corny, was simply a room full of screens displaying old computer files from the 21st century that were recovered, according to the smaller screens in front of each exhibit. The dull writing made Seth's chest ache. The flat, formal, emotionless stories brought so many visitors to tears. They brought Seth to tears, too, but not because he was reveling in the beauty of any sort of a written wonder. No, Seth's heart ached for those too lost from the world to see the falsehoods laid before them. Seth considered photographing the exhibits, hoping to study them further. The ancient camera he had would give the most accurate image with no unwanted touch-up feature. It was one of the last cameras sold without that feature. Seth scanned the room. Once again, the thing that hindered all the museum visitors, was hidden, completely unnoticeable to the untrained eye or passing glance. The room was littered with minuscule cameras, tucked away neatly. Seth wrinkled his nose. Taking photos would be far too risky. Seth pulled his face mask up and his hood down, trying to conceal his features. Seth exited the museum, if one could call it that, pulling his wrapped cloak tighter around himself. The air was icy, the midwinter wind sending a chill down his spine. A lock of dark hair slipped from beneath his hood, and the wind tousled it. Seth glanced at his watch, another old-fashioned accessory he sported. A transit bus would be pulling up any minute. The museum would be open for another hour, but Seth had combed through every exhibit at least twice. There was nothing more to find. Tomorrow would be another museum day, but this time Bronx would walk him through the exhibits. They had been the one to give Seth his watch, and had passed down their camera to him. Bronx usually avoided field work. They were nearly 70, and their bones creaked when they stood, but they did their best to explain things to Seth. A hiss of steam knocked Seth from his thoughts. The glistening chrome transit bus was parked before him. Seth fumbled for his bus pass, nearly dropping the slender card. He scanned it, and the doors of the bus opened. As soon as Seth stepped past the doors, they snapped shut behind him. The transit bus was completely empty. Seth paced down the aisle and plopped down into a seat near the back. Finally free from the tension of the museum, Seth tugged his hood down, but kept his face mask up. Seth's eyes flicked up at the sound of the door snapping shut a second time through the space. Seth's eyes flicked up as the sound of the doors snapping shut a second time echoed through the space. A young teen, probably around Seth's age, stood near the front of the bus, adjusting their long coat. Their hair was dyed a pale pink, and they wore sparkling tan eyeshadow, hidden behind thick pink lashes. It made Seth question his own fashion decisions. He glanced down at his gray cloak and simple black cargo pants. When he glanced back up, the person was peering at him. They raised a brow, and Seth felt his face flush. Seth may have been a rebellious teen, able to spot hidden cameras or AI photographs in the blink of an eye, but he was not a social butterfly. He was homeschooled by Bronx and didn't play any team sports. People were not his area of expertise. The person strode down the aisle towards Seth, and his breath caught in his throat. Were they going to talk to him? Had he done something wrong? Did they want to sit with him? Seth stared up at them, green eyes wide and panicked like a deer in headlights. They stopped right in front of Seth and extended a hand. The first thing Seth noticed was that the person's nails were painted a shimmering silver with hints of color that danced in the light. Neo McMarrin. She/they, the person announced. Seth's brain finally caught up with the situation. He quickly took Neo's hand in his and shook it. Neo smiled. "And you are?" she asked. "Oh, right," Seth exclaimed. "I'm Seth. Seth Larson. He, him." Seth didn't give out the last name that lingered on his birth certificate. Instead, he handed out Bronx's last name when asked. "Well, Seth, can I sit with you?" Neo asked. Before Seth could stop himself, a joke that Bronx never failed to make slipped out. "I don't know, can you?" Seth grinned, then frowned. He immediately wished to take back the terrible joke. To Seth's surprise, Neo doubled over in a fit of laughter. He stared at her as she put a hand over her own mouth, trying to stifle the laughter racking her frame. Finally, she gained control of herself. "I've never heard that one," Neo exclaimed. "Really?" Seth asked, completely and utterly perplexed by Neo's reaction. Neo nodded. "So, may I sit with you?" Seth grinned and stood, shuffling over so Neo could sit next to him. Neo plopped down and grinned at him, and Seth's heart stuttered, just a little bit. And it was word limit. Sorry for any rereading of sentences and stuttering and whatnot. I'm not great at reading aloud, but this was fun. Anyways, yeah, it was a word limit assignment, and so I didn't write anything more. I was considering continuing it and making it into a series. I wrote this last year, and it has become so much more relevant, and I think it's kind of crazy. So yeah, thank you.